Hey there, here's a travel log. I'm in the Houston airport after some amazing days.
On our last episode, we saw how Stacy Holden and her family show radical hospitality to Afghan refugees.
My heart is just so full. I think especially just of the power of opening our lives to others. Just the power of somebody saying you're welcome here.
Maybe you're thinking, Stacy has grown kids, she has a flexible job, she has a decent-sized home. If you don't have all those things, are you still called to hospitality? To explore that question, I'm headed to Michigan by way of South Bend, Indiana.
Eager to see biblical humility lived out even in more spaces.
Hannah Galvin could pretty easily make excuses for avoiding hospitality. In fact, she had good reasons to say no to hosting me.
So the week coming up to Erin arriving, my kids started coming down with fevers and runny noses and getting sick. And the day before she was supposed to arrive, 3 of them had fevers.
But Hannah still wanted to invite me anyway, and I was okay to risk the germs.
Today she's coming over, and so I've done the cleaning that I can and getting prepared, and my kids are prepared for her to come over. And thankfully they were feeling a lot better this morning when everyone woke up.
So I'm headed to visit Hannah because I want to hear some of the things she's learned by opening her home and showing hospitality.
God has really refined me and really helped humble me through it, of realizing how much more important people are than things and appearances. And a lot of growth too in our family and time management for making the time for people and being willing to set aside what we would rather do for the evening, especially if someone's in crisis. And it's like, all right, they need me tonight and I'll see you guys later. So to have an open heart about it. Pardon me. What happened?
Yeah, the 3 scissors in it.
Ooh.
When your hurt's too much to bear, I can't make it disappear, but I know how to weep with those who weep.
Getting into each other's lives just does not happen within the 4 walls of a church. That's where we can meet each other, but then when we come into our homes, in the context of a home, that's where we break bread, we break down barriers, and we create a climate for true fellowship and love to be experienced.
Laugh a laugh and cry a tear. Say yes to trust and no to fear. Do you know you're welcome here with me? Do you know you're welcome here?
My house is perfect for our family. It's not the biggest house. Sometimes it's a little cramped, especially when we have lots of people over.
How would you describe your decorating style?
I don't think I have one.
What do you want people to experience when they come in your home?
I want them to feel welcome and loved, but I really just want them to feel comfortable, that we care about them. It doesn't really matter what the little things look like, that it's more of my heart about it than what all the details look like in my house.
Hi.
You were not sick?
Yeah, this is Lila.
I
was the sickest.
You were the sickest?
Hannah's husband Josh is an associate pastor at a local church. According to 1 Timothy 3, that means Josh has to be able to teach, to be above reproach and not quarrelsome, among many other qualifications.
Part of
Well,
life.
maybe go outside.
You want to go outside?
But did you know that one of the qualifications in 1 Timothy 3 is a pastor or elder must be hospitable?
It's a command in scripture.
Yeah.
And so to be hospitable, and especially like it's specifically told towards overseers and elders to be hospitable as well. So I think like there's got to be a reason for that. And obviously our church now looks very different than the early church, and their
Yeah.
culture was very different, but I think there's a lot to be had from that, having people in your home.
So, in showing hospitality, Hannah is helping Josh fulfill his role as a shepherd. They get together with a group from church each week and lead the discussion. And Hannah has discovered it's especially meaningful to host that group in their home.
It's a lot harder to keep your walls up when you're at someone's house. So it's a lot easier to get to know someone and ask questions. And I think it's like good for building relationships with people. They get to see how we parent and speak into each other's lives easier. So it's just easier to build relationships when you're in a home. It wasn't hard to invite people into our home, because I like having people over. Having kids totally changes it, because you could have your home completely ready and then in 5 seconds it's a disaster.
True.
So that flexibility and growth there, grown a lot in relaxing my expectations for what our house looks like.
My kids are a little bit older than yours, but definitely still in the everybody at home, school activities years, and have a lot of friends that are the same. And just feel like there's a lot of ladies at my church and in my Christian circles that the kids are the reason why they feel like they can't show hospitality. For any number of reasons. Sometimes I think they just feel like I'm at max. And the thought of adding anyone or anything into the mix is too much for me, which I get on some level. But what would you say to that mom? How would you reconcile the demands of motherhood, which are real and daily, and what you see in Scripture, and I do too, as the command to be hospitable?
Part of the reason it's so important for me is like all the one another's in Scripture. You know, you should pray for each other, you should exhort each other, encourage, and
bear one another's burdens.
Yep,
that's where you're going.
Yeah, bear one another's burdens. You know, you can't do that if you don't know people.
Right.
And you can't get to know someone adequately 10 minutes before church and,
Right.
you know, staying after. You know, you can get to know people, but not to the same depth to like, what are you struggling with and how can I pray for you? And I see this in your life and how can we grow, you know, that area together?
What are some ways you keep your heart prepared to continue to show hospitality? Because I'm thinking of where Scripture tells us not to be weary in well-doing, and sometimes we can start out, even as young marrieds, eager to have our first house, excited to have people over, but then you're talking about a weekly cycle.
Yeah.
How do you prepare your heart to continue to show hospitality?
I think like your own spiritual growth is always important. And if you're not learning and growing, then you're gonna have a hard time obeying God in different areas of your life. So like when I'm not consistent in my devotions and prayer life, then I see that effect in other areas of my life. I'm like, I don't wanna do this. But it helps me to think of like the bigger picture. Like what's the real reason why we have people over, so that we can build into them and disciple and to help them grow closer to God. And sometimes you do that when you're tired, and sometimes you're super excited about it, and sometimes you're not, but still being faithful even when you don't feel like it.
I love my mom, and she was great at hospitality, but she was frantic before people came over. I mean, frantic. And it stressed us out. And so I have, we learn from our parents' mistakes. I have not wanted my kids to feel stressed. I'd be curious what they would say, but do you feel like the stress of hospitality gets past your kids, or how do you navigate that?
Some weeks definitely, because especially like I'd say a couple years ago when we had the older adult small group, not older, our age, adult small group at our house, was just learning a lot about like time management and working a couple of days in advance, a couple chunks at a time, and relaxing my expectations. But definitely some times where I had to apologize to them for how I'd talked to them and those frustrations. And then later on being like, yep, guys, I did not use a kind tone of voice with you. I'm sorry. And asking them to forgive me. And it's a humbling thing, but we also want our kids to know what it looks like to ask forgiveness, and I'm not perfect. And I learned personally that I need to have different, still be kind with them even when it's not meeting my expectations for how fast they should clean.
It's kind of become an internet or cultural joke how moms can act in the moments before guests arrive and then open the door and we put on a different face. I call that inhospitable hospitality because it's inhospitable to your own home, and wives and moms are so much the thermometer in a lot of ways of the tone of our home. And so I'm glad you've had to apologize too, because I've had to apologize plenty.
Probably not as often as I should have. It's probably other times I should have apologized.
And that's
I
one way I
didn't.
guess we could put a bad taste in our kids' mouths for biblical hospitality if they get the brunt of our stress because of it.
Oh yeah, or my husband too, when he gets home from work and he's had a long day and I haven't gotten to the bathrooms yet, and then it's just the mad dash of trying to get everything done before people come over, and we don't have a nice relaxing evening, so trying to do better about that too, so it's not just, here's the workload, honey, here's what all needs to be done, here's my to-do list, because that's not very kind either.
Hannah and Josh have both experienced the power of hospitality for themselves. When they were in college, they met another couple who were a few years older than them. This couple invited Hannah and Josh into their home and shared life with them.
Their job was to connect with college kids, but they went like 3 steps above that. They were like, oh, we want to connect, and it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. We want to get to know you. And it led to great relationships, learning how to, even getting the example of how to parent eventually. Because we learn from our own parents, but we also can learn from folks who are doing it. So getting to see them raise their boys gave us some insight on what it could look like later in life. They showed us what it was like to be welcoming in your everyday life, if that makes sense. Like, it was never, like, I never had to wonder if I knocked on their door if they were going to be okay with me coming in because the mess was too bad or whatever. It was always like their desire to connect and be there for us was greater than their shame of the mess.
I don't like creamy stuff, but I love garlic butter.
You love garlic butter? You're a man with refined tastes. And now the Galvins are doing for others what the mentor couple did for them. Hannah and Josh realized young adults represented one of the biggest needs in their church. So each week, they began inviting young adults to their house.
With young adults especially, it takes time to get to know people well enough to where when they're in the moments where they need somebody, to feel like they can come to that somebody. So you have lots of informal times so that in the moment when somebody's like, hey, I need somebody right now, they know that the door's always open. They know that they can call and we'll make it available for them. But if we don't spend the time with them, getting to know them and having fun and playing games and being informal, then in the moment of need, they're going to either look for it elsewhere or look for it nowhere.
One of our young adults we've known since he was in 7th grade. Like, one night he came over and he hadn't had dinner yet, and he just commented like, I haven't had dinner yet, and we had snack out. I was like, but are you like, do you want dinner? Like, I have leftovers, do you want to eat? He was like, yeah. I was like, all right, what do you want? We've got tacos, and I don't remember what else, but like, if you are hungry, I will feed you. Like, just let me know. And so other times we're like, all right, what's for dinner, Hannah? And I never want to like leave God's presence hungry. He wouldn't let me leave hungry. Yeah. So I don't want them to leave hungry. I want them to just feel loved in those little things, because God provides for us in those little things. For our kids, they have other adults who love the Lord, who are showing them love and attention and are building into their lives. It's awesome.
I hope that they love people coming into our home. I hope that later in life it isn't something where they felt like we needed the house spotless every time somebody came in our house and they hated when people came over, but rather that they're excited that somebody's coming over because they have a connection of their own with that particular person. So as they get older and they're out of the toddler and young kids age, I would love for them to want to be the hosts right along with us.
There's a story in the Gospels about a time when Jesus and his friends just wanted to get away for a break, but this huge crowd followed them, and Jesus responded with compassion. The disciples only had a little bit, just a few loaves and some fish, but Jesus multiplied what they had, and they got to serve all of those people. Instead of focusing on our lack, we should focus on the needs of others and the ability of Jesus to multiply what we have, no matter how little it seems. I think that's the attitude I see in Hannah and Josh. They don't say, we'll invest in others once our house is bigger, or once our kids are older, or once our lives settle down a little bit. They saw a need in their community among young adults, and they said, come, enter our real lives. You're welcome here.
I want our home to be a reflection of heaven to my guests. And if I can give them a little glimpse of that, like God's love for us is so much greater than anything I could show.
Do you know you're worth